Okay, let's get to meet you officially. Let's start from the very beginning. The woman behind the book. Who was this way before the accident?
So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out, this evening. Yes, it's my birthday. But, before now, birthdays were just like any other day to me. But before we get to that, I'll just also like to say a big thank you, to everyone who supported me on this journey. And, most times when certain things happen and they seem challenging, some of them would seem like they're bad stuff. But God is working everything out for our good. You heard my husband saying that he drove the fastest from the airport to the hospital. And I remember the children telling me after I got back from the hospital that Daddy was literally angry with everybody, Mommy. Like, we're not the ones that made you... Like, when he got home, he was just angry, shouting at everybody. If you know my husband, he's not a shouty person. He's very calm. But the thought of losing his Ekiti wife just made him completely like, what am I going to do with myself? So before the accident, I would say I was just that person that Auntie Onyekon described. I just wanted to look after my children, wife my husband, make sure that my house was clean, and, go to church, sell my recharge card, as I used to say, because I've always run like a partnership with MTN. I just loved to do whatever it is my hands are found to do very well. And, and it was okay. It looked like everything was just seamless up until the accident happened. And it was a Saturday. Where was I going? You guys should ask me where I was going on this Saturday. I was going to pick my children up from Bible school. Do you know what I mean? So, and we got to that big, massive T-junction in Abuja, and then the accident happened. Once my driver panicked, I figured something had gone wrong. So I didn't want to add to his panic. So I just kept quiet and closed my eyes, and I'm like, God, if they were maybe on the other side or here. So I didn't know where I was actually going to wake up. I didn't know where I was going to open my eyes. I didn't know if I was going to be on this side. So I just kept saying, these things are... Anyway, I was like, God, But when I heard the big bang, I don't know if anybody has the picture. Do you want to put the picture up on the screen? When I heard the bang, it was really loud. I summed up so much courage to open my eyes, and I saw that I was in Wuse 2. I recognized where I was. I'm like, okay, I did not die. That means I have a second chance at life. And, in that very instance, I started to think that, God must have spared me for a reason. I mean, the engine of the car literally cracked. All the airbags came out. It was a really bad car crash. But it was like there was an edge of fire around me because my scarf did not even fall. I only fell forward and I broke my arm. Till today, I say that in that car crash, my arm was broken, but my mind wasn't. And I think that really literally changed everything, because it could have been worse. I could have been unconscious. They could have kidnapped me from the scene of the accident. But, in the moment that I realized I was still alive, I started to think, from that spot, okay, God, why have you spared my life? So instead of being sad and, wearing a very long face, I remember some of my sisters from here showed up like SOS, Mrs. Ojeme, Twinny. They came to Abuja like accidents. And, and I had a bunch of flowers around, around me. But for me, I was thinking, if I had died actually, those flowers would have actually been more, and people would have been like, but I'm like, now that I'm alive, I need to make a difference. There must be a reason God is trying to call my attention. So I tag that as an awakening. The accident was an awakening for me. It was nice to live the life I was living before then. But now I needed to be more intentional about the things that I do and how I do them. Yeah.
So you already jumped into something I wanted to talk about. You talked about the fact that you started having a conversation with God right at that point in time. Could you let us a little deeper into what that conversation was?
Okay, like I said, I just wanted to know, and because I'd broken my arm, I needed to have a surgery. Of course, that lasted like 7 hours because they had to put in a metal plate and all of that. So I was in the hospital, a very quiet time, It was very solitary, and it gave me time to reflect on my life. I started then thinking, if I had died in that accident, what would I have been remembered for? Mama, Mama, those kind of things. So I'm like, life has to take a different turn from here. Where I start to then do what God has actually called me to do differently. So for me, I feel like everything you find to do is in some way you're part of your assignment. So it's not like I would have done it differently, actually. I believe life is also like in seasons, lived in seasons. That was one season. It needed to come to an end. Sometimes it's a massive disruption that would end a season that launches us into another. But it's just the sensitivity and, so that we're attentive when a season is changing. So when that happened and then I started to ask God, it was also a very humbling, when you come face to face with like death and you're like, okay, you escaped, then you need to rethink. So I started to rethink a lot of things. And from it's been one step after the other. It's been very progressive, actually, I would say. That was in 2019. This book didn't come out until 2025. So I also believe in process. God takes us through that refining, so that we can come out as gold. You don't come out if you have not been.
So I've done some research on, people who have come through serious accidents, and the comment I've heard most is one version of yourself has to die and another emerges. So do you believe this is true? And if yes, what version of yourself do you believe you've let go of?
So I've let go of that version of myself that was just doing life, like, emotion, like a clock, just because, this is my partnership with MTN. Actually, I'd gotten awards every year from the day we started the partnership. So it's not like Auntie Rigo said, it wasn't like it was something major for me. And I thought, this is an opportunity also to impact the young minds that come to work at the store. There were days I would be on the shop floor myself. So it was okay to do that. I had a routine that worked. But after that, I started to be more intentional. I started to understand disruption and the importance of it, and to take advantage of disruptions for the good of not just myself, but for everyone that I come in contact with. Yeah.
Okay, so for those that understand the process of putting together an audiobook, you start to ask certain questions. Why did the author say it this way and not that way? And the first thing that hit me was the name. I know you've probably answered this question a few times. Why is the title Doing and Being? Why do you think so many people are trapped in that doing aspect of things? And I'm wondering, have they simply forgotten how to be?
Okay, before I come to that question, I also have to mention that it was after I had the car crash that I went to do my MBA at the London Business School. And strangely, before the car crash, I was getting ready. The way you write those exams, you put your application together. The accident was in March. Once I had the accident, I started to think, now I need to start to do the work of God. MBA, just go and stay. So that's the picture of the car crash. And I started to be like, God, you must be calling me to a higher, But my husband was like, he won't say much. You just see action. He full on. So we went to the UK. He full on went to the London Business School and told them that, don't worry, my wife is still coming. I don't send him. I was like, okay, if accident has happened, I could have died. The MBA would not have mattered. But it still kind of felt like I needed to, better myself. I needed to, advance myself. And I can't be more grateful for that. Like I keep joking, I'm like, the entire money my father used to send me to school from JS1 to, it's not up to the money my husband paid to send me for MBA. Please, people should clap for him now. So for me, even with that, so when that evening after my husband had gone there, I went for the information evening with the cast. Apparently, that also made people notice me. So when we started the MBA, there were guys that would come and meet me that, oh, do you need any help? And I was thinking, I don't know you people from anywhere. But apparently they had seen me like someone that needed support. So everything is working together for good. Trust me. So now, why the title Doing and Being? And like you said, I've answered this question a few times. I would not take 100% credit for the title or for the old book idea. Like I've always thought it's good for everyone to leave a book on the face of the earth, because that's how you kind of immortalize yourself. And no one tells your story as good as you. You might think, well, my story is not grand, just write it down. It's okay. It might be for one person someday. But I didn't know how quickly I would write a book. I just knew that it was something that needed to happen someday. So this was last year, 2025, February. our daughter had a knee injury, and I had to just, cater to her. She couldn't move around as active as she used to be, but I had to look after her. And one of those afternoons after I had served her, I heard in my spirit, you're going to launch a book, not even write, you're going to launch a book on the 14th of June. And this was in February. So I'm like, because I've gotten to a point after the 2019 accident and so many other things that had happened in between. I'd lost my father in 2020. So many things that happened. And I started to see that life actually requires more intentionality than just, enjoying certain things, When and my walk with Christ had also deepened. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, I'd never written one before, but I said, okay. And I was wondering how I was going to write it, how I was going to start. But everything started to, and that's why I say that for every act of obedience, clarity comes. You'll be able to take the next step and the next. And then not just clarity, resources, not just material resource, the people, the information, everything you require would come.